My name's James Pope from Face Partnership. We're Sky's agency that have been running the cycling program for the last 3 years and this year as well. We're going to be supporting you through the program this year, so you'll be seeing a lot of us, and there's a couple of people I just want to introduce so you put a face to a name. Tony, if you want to stand up, this is Tony Kostick. He's our technical director, so he's been planning all the routes for the London to Paris, London to Brighton, and he'll be there on the rides. And Marit, if you stand up, Marit is, also works at Face, and she used to be a pro cyclist. She looks very young to be retired, but Marit's been helping with the training plans, so she's part of the team who will be advising on that. I'm pretty sure most of you know Abby McGee from the cycling team. Actually, she's at the back. But Abby, who's walking over as well, is leading things from Sky's side. So we're here to support you throughout the program, the training, the rides itself, and answer any questions along the way. So I guess the purpose of these workshops are to complement the training plans and to really provide access to some experts and pro riders. So got a bit of a running order here. So we've got the guys from Pearson Cycles who are going to take you through bikes, kit and accessories. We've got the IG Sigma pro rider Simon Richardson, who's going to talk us through a little bit about cycling etiquette and rules on the road. We'll have a short break, and then we've sent out the first training plans on Friday, so we're just going to touch a little bit on some of the basic principles from that, and obviously having Simon here, we might as well tap into the advice and tips from a pro rider. And then at the end, we've got Anna McNuff from Sky Velo, who's going to talk a bit about their lead rides. So I think today, this workshop is quite early on. We've only just started training, so we know with the London to Brighton ride, there are quite a few beginner riders this year, so this session today is going to be geared towards the beginner riders a bit more, but we are going to go into some advanced stuff as well, and we really don't want anyone to be daunted by that. It's a resource that's there for you to use, but you absolutely don't have to. So I just thought it might be useful just to get a quick show of hands. First of all, who is an absolute beginner who hasn't really ridden a bike before? There's a few of you. And who's on the London to Brighton ride? Who's here today? So the majority. Great. Well, we're going to sort of focus on some of the things that are going to help you guys. And then some of the later workshops will go in a bit more depth on the training and diet and nutrition and things like that. So to get things started, I'm going to hand over to Guy from Pearson Cycles, and they're going to take you through bikes, kit and accessories.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you very much to James for asking us along to this function. We're a very old, long-established bicycle business. We've been around since 1860, which is around about the time that bikes were invented. And we've got through a few world wars and some famines and everything else to get to this point here. We're 5 generations down the line, and I represent the 5th generation in our business. We operate out of 3 sites. Our original shop is down in Sutton, where I don't know if anybody is aware of that. This Sutton is a sort of South London town, and it's a shop that is a very general shop. It does motorbike stuff, just kids' bikes, right up to road bikes. Our second site is probably more relevant to you, which is over at East Sheen, which is near Richmond Park, and it was positioned there especially because of Richmond Park and its proximity to that park, and the fact that Richmond Park represents such an amazing training facility and riding facility. And it's also quite near the sort of the gateway to the lanes, which is the sort of Surrey, Sussex lanes. You can get out past Kingston pretty quickly from that position to go and get your training done. So the focus really for me today is to just introduce you to what we do as a business. We have the basic sort of retail outlets, as you know, where we sell bikes and the kit, and we also offer a couple of services which I'll go into as we go through. So excuse me. The first thing I mind talking about is bikes. Can I just have a quick show of hands to see who has not got a bike yet and is thinking about perhaps purchasing a bike? So 1 or 2, three, four of you. So we're having a shopping evening a week today over at the Sheen shop, where it might be beneficial for you to come along and have a look at perhaps some possibilities in terms of getting bikes rather than just going online or guessing or going to the local shop. We can sort of steer you into the right sort of thing that's suitable for you and suitable perhaps for the events that you're going to be doing. I'll just go through some bikes, the types of bikes that are available, and then I'll go through some of the kit that you might need and some of the equipment that you might need for doing the events that you're going to do. Principally the London's Brighton event, which we've recce today, and then going on to some of the more advanced riders who are perhaps going to do some of the more ambitious events. The first type of bike that I'm going to talk about is the hybrid. So this is sort of one step up from your basic mountain bike. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, but this is essentially the form that they take. They usually made of aluminium. They're very, very tough. They double up as a commuter bike. They can be a fitness type bike. They can have carrier racks fitted to them. You can fit lights, locks, and what have you. So it's generally thanks. It's generally just an all-purpose bike that will do absolutely everything. You can do most of the events that the Sky Velo intend to do on this sort of bike, and it will also double up as a commuter, and you can hack backs and forwards to work all throughout the year because it's got mud guards and it protects you from the weather. So the majority of these bikes, they come in around about sort of £300 plus. The good ones are 500, 600, that sort of price point, and it will work very well for you, and it'll last you years and years and years. Thank you, Mike. The next bike we'll talk about are sort of entry-level road bikes. So these are the first of the sort of bikes that have the dropped handlebars. All the gears are up on the brakes here. You can change your gears nice and easily. They've got very tough tyres. They also have a multitude of gears. This one's got a triple, so it's got all the gears you'll ever need to do any sort of mountain rides or sporty type rides. The frames are made of aluminium, so they're very tough. They'll take an absolute beating, and this particular one will also take mud guards and a rack and all the sort of add-ons which you might want to put on your bike to do your training, like your lights and so on. So they come in from £500 upwards. They have a sort of life. They tend to get used for 8 to 10 years, something like that, and then you might move on. With cycling, you'll probably find out it's a very addictive sport, and you may find that you'll want to get something a little better straight away, and this then becomes your second bike. Most bike riders have got at least one bike, N+1. So it goes on and on, so you can get a whole stable of bikes, a bike for every occasion. But they will serve you very, very well, and they'll last you forever. Now, slightly more serious looking bike. It's the sort of bike that you see the guys riding in the Sky team and in the Tour de France. So these are predominantly carbon fibre. They're the sort of racing shape. However, the majority of the bikes that we sell that are this type of bike have a fairly upright front rather than the Sky Riders that you see with their backsides up in the air and their hands down low, and they can sit like that for 7-8 hours at a time. We can't, so we tend to have a fairly level saddle to handlebar shape here, which gives you a much more upright position. It means you can see where you're going, it means it doesn't put too much strain on your back, and you can push hard on the pedals. So the carbon fibre bikes, there's a bit of a myth around carbon fibre that it's a little bit weak. It really isn't. The frames are incredibly strong, they're super tough, they'll take an absolute beating. The frames are incredibly light. The actual frame, for any geeks amongst you, I'm sure you'd like to know that the frames can be less than 800 grams in weight. But with that, they provide a very comfortable and smooth ride because they tend to take out the vibration from the road, so it doesn't travel up through the bike, through your backside, through your hands and through your feet, which in an ongoing situation actually makes you tired. So they tend to be very, very efficient as bikes. You will be able to do 60, 80 miles in a day quite easily straight away if you were to get yourself a bike like this. The majority of these sort of bikes do tend to have the clip-in type pedals, which I'll come on to later. They have racy tyres, they have a multitude of gears again, usually 20 odd gears. Some of them even have electric gears where you just touch a button and it will change. It's really flash. So these sort of bikes, they tend to come in around about £1,500. So if you were thinking that you might want to get into this sport, it would not be a bad thing just to go straight out and get something in this sort of range, but you'll never regret it. It will always be with you. They last forever, and you know, the more you do it, the more you like it, and so on. That's why the cycling is so addictive. And you'll really get a lot of fun and pleasure out of a bike like that. Okay, I just want to have a quick chat about the kit that's available. I mentioned the pedals. There's a couple of options on pedals and shoes. The majority of the hybrid type bikes that Mike is there, they have a flat pedal which you'll be able to use with just your normal outdoor shoes, your trainers. The disadvantage of using trainers is that they are very flexible. They're designed to flex so that you can actually walk in them. Cycling shoes tend to have a completely solid sole, and this is to allow every bit of effort that you push into the pedal to go into the bike and up the road. So they tend to be very, very stiff in the sole, which makes walking a little bit tricky, but there's a couple of options here. So I'll just go through the first one. There's two schools of thought on pedals. There's SPD, which is what you see here. This is a SPD shoe, which has got a normal sort of outdoor sole on it. The cleat is up inside the sole here, so that when you're walking you can't feel it. They tend to be a sort of lower performance type shoe, but they are very practical because it means that you will be able to walk up Ditchling Beacon when you get there in a few weeks' time. We went up today in the car, and that was hard. And they have a very easy in and out system on the clasp. So I know they look a bit scary, but these pedals, I know they look like hand grenades, but they're not. They're just like based on the ski binding. They clip in, and once you're in, you're locked in. To get out, you're just kicking your heel away from the bike, and they release. It's a really straightforward thing, and you get used to it very quickly. There are the odd occasion where you might be stuck in your cleats and you get to the traffic lights and you forget and over you go. It rarely happens. When it does happen, it's a bit of a bump on the hip, but you will never do it again. Always.
So disappointing.
Absolutely. I think. Rule one. I think Simon might have something to say about that. So, second option is the racing bike shoe. This is the sort of thing that the Sky Riders use. It's a very lightweight shoe. It's a bit scary, but it's a very lightweight shoe with a very, very stiff, usually carbon sole. The cleat is on the external of the sole. Makes walking not particularly easy. Slipping around concrete steps, that sort of thing, falling over in the cafe. But the sole is so stiff that every ounce of your effort goes into the bike and up the road. So it's a really, really efficient way of riding your bike. It's a single-sided pedal, so you can clip in, same thing, ski binding. You clip in, you're locked in. Every bit of effort that you push down goes into the bike. To get out, you just kick your heel out and you're out. Most of the bikes that you'll be using most of the types of bikes that will be used for the events that you're doing, you'll probably have some form of shoe and pedal. It just makes life much, much easier. It just makes you go a little bit faster and make life better. So, just in terms of equipment, Cycling shoes tend to be quite snug, so you can't really get thick socks on inside them. So to keep warm in the winter, which I'm sure you'll be doing miles and miles throughout winter in your training program, you tend to wear your socks on the outside of your shoe. It keeps you a little bit warm and saves you getting cramped in your feet. In terms of cycling clothing, most of you would have probably invested by now in a pair of cycling shorts. They come in multitude of shapes and sizes, but they essentially have one common thing, and that's the pad inside it. They are absolutely essential for any sort of distance riding. The pad is very thick. There's a lady-specific one, there's a gent-specific one. The gents ones tend to have bibs that come over your shoulders, and the idea of this is just to keep the pad hard up inside so it doesn't move about when you sit down. It will save the day for you. The ladies' ones tend to be just a waist short, just so that you can stop and go to the toilet. And that's it, yeah. So there's winter versions of those as well, which are the long tights. They tend to be windproof at the front. They also have a pad inside them, doing your bras. Again, ladies' waist ones, the gents' ones come up over the shoulder. Right, so that's more or less it. Oh, and jackets, I'm sure you've got jackets, but they're just windproof type jackets for the winter. Tend to have a thermal property. They tend to be very breathable. Straight to your skin, you will also need to wear a proper wicking shirt or undershirt, not cotton, not a t-shirt. All that will do will just catch the water, catch the sweat, and stick to you and make you cold. So. Now, there's the other couple of services that I wanted to oh yeah, sorry, one more thing. Equipment, helmets. We have a deal with Casc Helmets, who are the helmet supplier for the Sky team, where we can supply these Casc helmets at less than cost price, so subsidised price. They will be available at the shopping evening next week if you haven't already got a helmet. Well worth getting one, of course. You'll have to wear one for your events. The lighter helmets tend to have more ventilation, so it's worth getting a good one. They can cost around about sort of £80 for the cheapest ones, and they go up to £200, £300 quite easily, as you'll probably find. I'm conscious of time, so I better finish off. There's a couple more services that we offer. We have a Cycle Fit studio in store at Sheen. Cycle Fit is a service whereby a rider is fitted to the bike. It's a fairly lengthy process. It can take 2 to 3 hours. We can either do it before you perhaps were to buy a bike, or we can convert your existing bike and fit you to that bike correctly. The whole operation takes about 2 to 3 hours, and it has a cost to it. Next week, when you come along to the shop, you'll be able to see the studios and perhaps get a better idea of what it's about. Essentially, the idea of it is to position yourself on the bike and put you in the most efficient and energy economical position on the bike in regards to keeping your comfort there as well. So it's a very, very valuable service, and it's probably the most essential service for the newcomer coming into cycling. Alongside that, we offer a physiotherapy service. We have an in-house physiotherapist who can help you improve your position and can also treat you for any sort of cycling-related injuries. Next week, the shopping evening will be have some drinks and nibbles with it as well, and it'll be a bit more of a social evening. We intend to offer some very good discounts on the night, so that if you were thinking about getting anything, it would be well worth cashing in on that now. Following that, we've got a ride, the first of James is going to go into a beginner's type ride, which will be in Richmond Park, which I'm running, which will be 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, which will be an introduction to group riding, perhaps a few pointers towards training, and some technical skills session. It's not going to be a beasting, it's just going to be a ride with with a few little pointers towards just staying on your bike properly, changing gears, putting on your brakes, that sort of thing. Real basic stuff, but I'm sure it'll be very enjoyable. It'll last a couple of hours. That's it. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Guy. I'd just like to point out, obviously, for everyone doing the London to Brighton, it's 50 miles, so the hybrid bike, if you're looking at investing, you know, obviously the beautiful carbon bike, not everyone's got £1,500 lying around, but the hybrid bike's absolutely fine. Likewise, trainers will be fine as well, and everybody on the program is getting one of the Team Sky replica jerseys, so you'll have your jersey for it. We do, as Guy pointed out, recommend getting a proper pair of shorts, even for the London to Brighton. It's a small investment. I think they start from £30, something like that. But you know, if you're going to be spending several hours in the saddle, it will make your life a lot easier. So we'll move on now. Just bring up Simon Richardson. I think Simon can probably introduce himself better than me. And Simon's going to talk about cycling etiquette and rules of the road.
Thanks very much. Right, well, hi everyone. I'm a professional cyclist with IG Sigma Sport. I've been a pro now for 10 years. The first 5 years of those I was a mountain biker, and then I swapped onto the road, and here I am. So some of the things I'm going to be talking to you about, I've had to learn quite recently as well. Obviously, as a mountain bike, you don't have to, you know, ride in groups, things like that. So some of these things are quite fresh in my mind too. Right, okay, so essentially what I want to talk about is, for me, the fundamental of cycling, which is riding in a group. So obviously if you're doing the London to Brighton, you know, you're going to be surrounded by other cyclists. If you're, you know, ever going to do an etap, something like that, you know, these sort of techniques that you can put into place now that actually make it just so much easier. Yeah, it is, for me, like I say, absolutely key. Then I want to talk about the etiquette. So nothing particularly you know, demanding here, but it's really just things that you know, at the end of a long ride, you know, when you're tired and dehydrated, I don't know about anyone else, but I get exceedingly grumpy. So these little things that you can do, or you know, stop other people from doing, that just make life just that little bit more pleasant. So we'll deal with that. And then finally, something that's always a hot topic, but particularly now with the Times campaign and things, just safe cycling. Really, for me, I sort of want to feel that I can be a bit more proactive about my personal safety on the bike, and rather than just relying on, you know, motorists becoming more aware, or, you know, planning for, you know, cycle lanes, things like that. I think there are things that we can do to look after ourselves a little bit better. Stuff that I've just picked up over the years. It's not sort of cycling proficiency tests or anything like that. It is just literally things that I think about subconsciously when I'm out on my bike to try and stay safe, basically. Right, I thought this was a prerequisite, but it's probably as well it's on there. Always wear a helmet. I always do. I don't wear it for myself, I wear it for my wife. But for whatever reason, it's absolutely essential. Don't jump red lights. I think that goes without saying. No, in all seriousness, some of these ones, they're obviously for the law, but that doesn't necessarily always, you know, stop people. But I don't believe in karma, but there is something about when you're cycling that one person's act, jumping through a red light or getting aggressive or whatever, I think that if a car driver is then, you know, like hacked off with it, the likelihood is they're going to be then driving a little bit worse, they're going to be a little bit more inclined to, you know, dislike cyclists, and they could end up taking it out on someone else. So for that reason, I think that these last ones, don't jump red lights, don't get aggressive, you know, they're really important for everyone to stay safe, really. And that final one as well, that's obviously a real, you know, hot topic, particularly in London. I think there's a lot of problems. It's just something to watch out for, really. You don't really need to do it necessarily, so it's just worth being aware of. Okay, so I said that group riding was for me where, you know, the fundamentals of road cycling are. The reason why, essentially, is it makes life so much easier. So I'm sure we've all heard of slipstreaming, so whereby if you're sat on the wheel of another cyclist, it's 30% easier. And there's no word of a lie, it really does make a huge difference. I'm sure you've all found that out already. So essentially, two people can ride faster than one person over a great distance, and then, you know, that increases obviously the more people you've got. This other one, time goes quicker. I think I must have written this after a particularly tough and solitary ride. It might not necessarily be a plus point if it's your Sunday morning, but for me it's just more enjoyable going on group rides. You know, you get to chat to people, you get the competitive element every now and then. So it really is like worth getting these skills dialed in. Okay, so what are we doing in riding in a group? Basically, the key thing to remember is that you're looking after other people and not just yourself. So with that in mind, you have to think about the riders that are behind you that can't necessarily see things. So riding a straight line, it's obviously, you know, it sounds obvious, but actually when I'm riding by myself, I do ride differently to when I'm with other people. That's to say I'm not, you know, swerving to avoid potholes, things like that, without giving any care or attention to anyone who might be behind me. You have to be a lot more aware of your personal space because you're obviously quite enclosed with other riders. So it's worth not just staring at the wheel in front because you've obviously got no time to react, things like that. So, so you need to be looking as far ahead as you possibly can, really, while still remembering that, you know, you've got limited time to react. Then the final thing, which is absolutely key, is to be smooth. So you don't want to brake too hard or accelerate too hard because, like we've just touched on, these kind of things will ricochet through the group and you end up finding that you might put other people into difficulty. Right then, so the technique that we'll probably generally employ when riding in the UK, it is legal to ride two abreast, it's worth remembering that, but that's not to say you should do it all the time, but this is the way of sort of covering distance really in a group. So you ride with two parallel lines of riders, you have a certain amount of time at the front, so I've put here 5-minute turns, you're the one obviously putting the effort in on the front, and then essentially you just rotate off and then go and sit in the back and it's time to recover. It's really simple, it's really effective, and it works in the UK, it works worldwide. It's like a, you know, an international standard of how to ride basically, which is quite cool, I think. Right, for me this is where things get really good. This is where you start going faster, through and off it's called. You still have two parallel lines. In this instance, one is going faster and one is going slower. So the principle is that you spend less time on the front, so you're able to try harder for that smaller amount of time, basically. So you ride up the fast line, you keep it smooth, you keep your speed the same, and you just pull over onto to the left, maybe change up one gear. The idea is that you then slow up and cruise back down the other line. So it's really simple, but it is incredibly effective, and you can find a bunch of cyclists can just go, you know, well, you see in the Tour de France, whatever, 50, 60k an hour, like, and it's mainly because of this. Little technique to do it, we've said it before, it smoothly does it. There's nothing worse than someone who's trying to show everyone how strong they are, and they come up the fast line, and instead of moving across and slowing down, they keep going, and they ruin the whole thing, and then you've got people scrabbling around at the back, trying to get back on, and you've just got one person at the front who's trying to show everyone how cool they are, but actually it's a team effort. So really one person who's trying to be cool actually messes it up for everyone else. Like I said, short turns, because then you can maintain a much higher degree of effort for that short period of time, and then it really does just work to, you know, it's a sort of uniform machine. It really is quite cool. Right then, so some of these things, they don't necessarily look very self-explanatory. The half wheel is one of the worst things. The person that's just ruined the through and off, he's most likely to be the one who's half wheeling you as well. So this is when you're riding two abreast and one person just sticks their wheel just a little bit in front of yours, which sounds quite innocuous, but actually what it means subconsciously is that they want to go faster than you do. So the natural tendency then is to pick up the pace and try and draw even. But then the person on your right is probably going to start to stick the half wheel on again. So it ends up that the whole group travels at 40k an hour whilst these two people on the front have this kind of battle of minds until one person cracks, but everyone else behind is exceedingly grumpy. So the person who half wheels generally doesn't get invited on bike rides very often because people do get annoyed with that after a while. I'm about to go to Italy with one such person who, after 3 years of being his teammate, I'm still unable to explain why being half wheeled by him is not that cool. No matter how many times we then, you know, ruin him and drop him, he still goes back to half wheeling. So even when he's half comatose, he's addicted to it, but it's not cool. Sharing the work. So this is about doing your doing your fair share, basically. It's like going to a bar and never buying your round. So eventually people will get a bit annoyed about it, because as we've said, 30% easier sat in the wheels. It really does make a difference. So if you're the person that's always scrabbling around trying to get clipped into their pedals at every junction, and finding yourself miraculously at the back of the group and therefore never doing a turn, you will get found out one of these days, and people will get annoyed with it. Incidentally, if you don't want to do too much work on the front, I highly recommend taking a long time to clip into your pedals when you're pulling away from a junction, and that way you miraculously find yourself at the back and therefore a long way away from doing work at the front. Anyway, so if you are going to take that tactic, which is absolutely fine, because one of the cool things about group riding is that if you're not as strong as some people, then you can have an easy ride. You can still go out with everyone, and it's, you know, the disparity of abilities is much smaller in a group. But one thing I would ask you not to do is don't attack when you're going up climbs. So if you've just been sat in the wheels sheltering for the last 3 hours, and then you hit Box Hill on the way home, and you suddenly launch one in the big ring and smash it up to the top, people will be really annoyed at that point. And it's just poor form. So like I say, you know, maybe once or twice it's all right, but over time, these things, you will get a reputation for yourself, and people will stop asking to go bicycling with you. I think that's fair enough. Right then, so I think you've had a newsletter I've seen where there has been a bit of this kind of stuff, staying safe in the group basically. You can't see where you're going necessarily, so you have to trust what everyone else is doing around you. So these things are what really helps. I won't dwell too much on it because I think they're self-explanatory, but I can't stress enough just how important it is, particularly holes, which at this stage of the winter, there's nothing worse than disappearing down a pothole that your friends haven't pointed out. Everyone has to wait if you've got a puncture. You can genuinely, you know, have a crash. People do forget about it, but it really is quite important. But like I said, I think you've all seen that, so I won't dwell too much on it. Now finally, so the personal safety thing, like I said, I like to feel like I'm taking responsibility for myself, even if at the end of the day I'm completely at the mercy of, you know, other people. I do feel that I need that kind of, yeah, that when I go out on my bike. So my golden rule is ride as if you haven't been seen yet, which isn't to say that you're never going to be seen, but just that if someone's pulling out of a junction, the likelihood is they haven't seen you. So it's just a subconscious kind of awareness really that someone might do something stupid, and they probably will. So like I say, not defensive. I think that it's good to be assertive when you're riding. I don't think you should hug the gutter necessarily, but it's just having that extra sort of awareness of people potentially doing stupid stuff, I think. So for me in particular, these black spots, I have a fear of people opening car doors on me. I've never actually had a car door opened on me, but riding down against parked cars, I'll always make sure I sit out in the road, particularly if you know, if it's a busy road or whatever. Like, that's one of my personal fears, if you like. But I've got no problem with sat, you know, a metre out into the road. I think that's totally fine. The other thing is coming down towards like a T-junction, particularly off a hill or whatever. You may be going 30, 40 miles an hour. That person who's sat about to pull out the T-junction, I'm always going to assume that they've not seen me. Whether they have or not, it doesn't really matter. If I slow down to 20 miles an hour, you know, at the end of the day, it's no big deal. So that happens, you know, regularly, but I just think it's absolutely worth bearing that in mind. The other thing, this beautiful road here is my personal nemesis. This is the A370 just outside Bristol, and this photo doesn't do it justice. Surprisingly, there aren't that many photos on the internet of the A370, but this is the best I could find. Basically, it's one of the main commuter routes into Bristol. It's a dual carriageway. It's dead straight after this corner, and basically it's what all commuters barrel into town on, and they go out of it as well. Occasionally, you see people cycling down it, and it's my absolute pet hate. There is no need to cycle on this road, but you see it not just in Bristol, but you see it like nationwide. People are cycling on roads that we're legally allowed to ride on, but why would we do that? So again, I think it's up to us to take a bit of responsibility about where we ride, basically. And for a number of years now, I keep meaning to set up some kind of like self-regulation, like a website where people can just say, actually, this road here, like, it's a stupid road to cycle on. So like the A1, for example, we're legally allowed to ride on the A1, and people do it. But like, you know, why would you do that? It's just, you know, it's the most dangerous place. So when you are sort of if particularly new to cycling, basically, I would suggest that you don't just. I would suggest, I don't know what that slide was, that you don't just ride like where you would normally drive. So that you would, think twice about using these A roads and things. There's generally a good alternative, like a nice B road, a nice country lane, that kind of thing, basically. So that when you are out, that you just take yourself out of harm's way, basically. 60 mile an hour, dual carriageways, it's an accident waiting to happen, really. Having said that, some of the small lanes, the rat runs, equally you need to be aware of, because a small lane where people are going to drive at 60 miles an hour is as bad as a dual carriageway, probably worse. But over time, it's very easy to work out which the best routes are, and I think that, obviously with most of your organised things, then it's absolutely not a reason to worry at all. But just for your training and things, just really, I'd stress, just bear in mind, where exactly you're going to put yourself, basically. Cool. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. It's just worth sort of reiterating. I think we really do encourage everyone to try and get out on some of the group rides, and we will be talking a little bit about the Sky Velo led rides at the end. If you are new to cycling, or if you are lacking in confidence on the roads, really do get on Guy's beginner sessions. They're starting a week on Saturday, and we'll be running them fortnightly, and they will really, really help get that confidence up. And they'll be on the closed roads through the middle of Richmond Park to start with, and we'll build you up to going out on lead rides. The other thing I say is on the actual events themselves, so particularly London to Brighton and London to Paris, we will have ride leaders from Sky Velo. They will be throughout the group, and if you are struggling, then even though, as Simon said, take your turn, we do encourage, the ride leaders are there to help you. So sit behind a ride leader, they'll be able to tow you along, get you up any hills, and they're really there to support you. It is so much easier to sit behind someone and ride. You will really notice the benefit. What I thought would be quite nice to do now, very quickly, is we've got a video taken from last year's Mallorca training camp. In the newsletter we sent out yesterday, we were sort of asking people to show if they were interested in coming on this training camp. It's great complementary training. It probably isn't really necessary for people doing to London to Brighton, but after what Simon's just been talking about, if you watch this, you'll see a few examples of everyone riding in a group.
See you crystal clear. Go ahead and sell me out, and I'll lay your ship bare. See, I'll leave with every piece of you. Don't underestimate the things that I will do. There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch, and it's bringing me out the
So that sort of gives you a little bit of the idea of Mallorca there. Like I say, I think for the London to Paris in particular, if you're doing that ride, that's pretty much how people will be riding. It makes life so much easier. And like I say, if people want to come on the training camp, that's the kind of vibe that we'll have. We're going to have a short break now, just for 2 minutes. I know we're sort of running slightly behind, so it will only be for a couple of minutes if anyone needs to pop to the toilet quickly, and then we'll continue straight on. So we just going to cover very briefly, because as you can probably imagine, I'm not a coach, so I'm not the best person to be telling you about training. At one of the future workshops, we will have, hopefully, Rod Ellingworth from Team Sky, who's Mark Cavendish's coach. He's been, it's his training plans, particularly for the harder rides that we're using, so we're hoping to get Rod along, or one of the other top Team GB coaches, so they'll go into a lot more detail. I think very much for today, particularly for the London to Brighton riders, you know, zone training is certainly not essential for you, but you know, if you want to get into it, it is a valuable resource, and you can do that. We're also at one of the next workshops going to have a specialist to talk about diet and nutrition. I've got it on my bullet point there, so I'll just touch on it very briefly. We sent out the training plans at the end of last week, so if any of you didn't receive it, grab me at the end, because you should now be in your first week of training. There was a document with that, which was an overview, very basic training principles, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to read through that. I think the first point up there is quite an important one. It's about a balance between working, training and resting. We recognise that most people here are busy working and have family commitments, so the training plans really are designed to fit in with your work and personal commitments. And don't be afraid to move them around as well. If you've got a busy work week and you just can't do one of the training days, don't fret about it. You just miss out the training day. It's absolutely fine. It has to fit with your lifestyle for it to work. And most importantly as well, you have to enjoy it. I think what's quite important is not to overtrain, and that's when we'll talk very briefly about zone training, and one of the main things with zone training is it helps you not to overtrain. So what I'd say is crucial is ensuring you do get plenty of rest. If you have one of your big rides at the weekend, it is absolutely fundamental that you rest afterwards. Do not sacrifice rest at all. It is just as important as training. So if you've got a busy work week and you're running around, travelling around the country, maybe ease off the training a little bit and really ensure that you're getting plenty of rest. We'll keep giving you weekly tips and reiterating some of these points, so I'll move on to diets. Yeah. On the diet, I think as the intensity of the training increases, for you to get the most out of the training, you should really try and make some small adjustments to your lifestyle. That means as you're approaching the ride, maybe cutting down a little bit on your alcohol intake, and starting to eat a bit healthier. It really will complement your training, and you'll see massive gains in your training from doing that. I think what's really important as well is if you do the long ride, the recovery afterwards, eating well after the ride will help you recover quicker. When you finish the ride, you can have protein shake, and when we do the diet and nutrition, we'll have someone from one of the nutrition companies who will be talking about their products. Alternatively, banana, rice pudding, things like that are all good. But as well, remember to treat yourselves. You've got to be motivated. So what I like to do is if I do a long ride at the weekend, I'll have a massive roast dinner or a pizza afterwards, and that's absolutely fine, and you've deserved it. You've burnt off those calories, so you have to keep treating yourself to keep motivated. The next point, riding the ride. Essentially, the training plans are going to build up and almost simulate the challenge that you're going to do. Might not necessarily, for those of you doing the Pinarello, simulate climbing the Monte Grappa, but certainly for those of you doing the London to Brighton, we'll be getting you close to the distances you'll need to go in the training. And what's really important when you do the ride yourself is start steady. Don't go as fast as you can. Start steady and build up. But as we approach the ride, we'll be giving you more tips and advice on that. What you might have noticed on the training plans as well is there are 3 levels on most of the plans. The starter level has been introduced to really make it as easy as possible for everyone who's just getting started. You can follow the starter level, but we do encourage you to try and move up to intermediate as soon as possible, because it's a bit more structured, it's a bit more interesting, and it will really develop your fitness much quicker than the starter plan. But if it is tricky for you to do that, or if you are finding it challenging, if you follow the starter plan, you will absolutely be prepared for the ride. So don't worry too much. The intermediate level is aimed at your commuter or sort of enthusiastic cyclists, and it will introduce some exercises, some interval training, some short sort of sprint training to build power. So it does get a moderately technical, but it should be quite interesting. And then the advanced level, for all of you out there who are your experienced cyclists, that's where you can really see some excellent gains and utilize the experience of Rod Ellingworth and the other coaches we've got on the program. What we're doing this year, you will have noticed, we're going to send you the training plans in phases. Last year we sent them weekly, but what we felt would be better this year is if you do get a phase at a time, you're able to plan ahead a little bit, and it gives you a few weeks. So if you do have a busy week at work, or if you are away one weekend, you can restructure the plan slightly to fit in with those commitments. Don't worry too much about some of this, particularly for the London to Brighton riders. This full sort of roster of phases is going to be relevant for the people doing the Pinarello in particular. But just very quickly, the base conditioning, which we're calling basic fitness on the London to Brighton, that's the phase we're all doing now. It varies in length depending on which ride you're doing, and essentially it's just about getting time in the saddle and getting used to a slightly structured training plan. So it's pretty easy, and it's just sort of building you up to the next level, where advanced conditioning, essentially what we're going to do on advanced conditioning is just build the hours in the saddle. There will be some shorter turbo sessions, which is to build the intensity. Now, obviously, particularly on London Brighton, you're not going to have a turbo trainer. If you do have a turbo trainer, great, but the turbo sessions, when you see them on the training plan, a spinning class is just as relevant with one of the turbo sessions, or you can do the similar exercises on an exercise bike in the gym. So don't feel you need to go out there and buy a turbo, but if you do really want to get into it, a turbo is the best. But I would certainly recommend the spinning classes, and I know that Sky have got some spinning classes available for you all to participate in. Strength and aerobic, very much, there'll be shorter, more intense rides to build up that power, and that gets quite technical, but it's quite interesting as well. Likewise with the intense conditioning. For the London to Brighton, I'm not going to dwell on that too much now because it really isn't relevant for the London to Brighton people. But every time we send out each phase, we will give an explanation of what the purpose of the phase is. Just at the end here, ride preparation. The few weeks running up to the ride will get you doing a few really longer rides, and for the London to Paris people, getting you doing a couple of back-to-back days to get you used to riding 2 days at a time in the saddle, because you are going to be riding 3 days in a row. And then the taper, again, not really relevant to taper for 50 miles on the London to Brighton, but that's all about the week before some of the bigger rides. You really step back from the training, helps your body recover, you focus on getting all your kit ready and your bike prepared for the ride ahead. So, it's just giving you a sort of idea on the structure that we've got ahead. There's just a snapshot of one of the plans that was sent out. This is from the London to Brighton, so you can see the different levels there. And when we put, we're trying to make it as easy as possible, so we're saying a commute to work. This is about building your fitness, so it can be a run. You can go on the treadmill for 30 minutes to build your endurance. So, you've got to make the training plans work for you. And like I say, you'll see each of the different levels, so you can move up and down as you wish. I'm going to hand over to Simon now. Seeing as we've got a professional here, I think it would be handy to get the tips directly from the pro.
Thanks, James. Right, well, certainly having a look at what's like the plans that have been prepared for you and the advice that you're getting, I think it's absolutely spot on. So I wouldn't contradict any of it. And so really what I just want to say now is is things that perhaps that help me and that might not have been said yet, but you're probably going to get given anyway. So when I'm approaching something, I think it's great to have a goal in mind. So it sounds like you've all got something, either the London to Brighton or the Pinarello or whatever. I think this is key to give you a focus, a long-term focus, so that you know exactly what you're getting into, and so that you can plan accordingly. I think it's also good, if it gets you out the door, when it's cold and wet or whatever, you can think the ultimate aim in mind. This final one, progression, is the enjoyable one. You can sort of tailor it into your planning, and you've got on the training plans. So either progression in terms of hours or intensity, but this is where you see the gains, and it's actually the best bit. It's the motivating factor, really. So when it's written into your training plan, as every week that goes by, you can tick something else off, and you seeing those gains is what provides the motivation to carry on, I think. Right then, so like I said, things that I've sort of worked out over the years, really. Find out what motivates you. So James mentioned spin classes a minute ago. If you're the type of person, I think, that needs other people to motivate you, then this seems like a brilliant way of doing it. Like a turbo trainer, it can be quite a sort of solitary and a bit like banging your head against the wall, I think, sometimes. Whereas a spin class, if you're a social kind of person and you feed off other people, then I think that's a great way to go. Likewise, finding people to ride with, of an evening or like on the weekend. Again, if that's what's going to get you out the door, then it's worth making the effort to try and get that, as a regular thing. If, on the other hand, that you're quite a solitary kind of person, then there's no dramas, focusing on your zone training or whatever. You ride by yourself, you tick the boxes. Again, it's absolutely cool. It's just whatever works, really, and I think you need to, the sooner you work that out, the better, and the more enjoyable it's going to be. I think approaching every ride as if you can get something out of it is also quite a good idea. It kind of goes without saying, if you've got a plan written down for you, then it's more obvious, basically. But knowing that you're going to go ahead and do, I don't know, 5-minute efforts or whatever, if that's what's going to motivate you, then it's really good to have an idea. Or today is an endurance ride, so it's still a ride, but you know exactly how it's going to benefit you, because there's some sense of, if you know what it's going to do to your body at the end of it, you can sort of prepare yourself for how you're going to get better, really. And there's a really strong mental side, I think, to training, and that's one of the big things. And finally, obviously, if you're following the plans, then it's slightly less relevant, but there's a sense that you need to train what you want to improve, which is kind of obvious, but a lot of people forget this. So if you're going to be wanting to do 160 Ks in the Italian Alps or whatever, there's not much point in going to the gym to bulk up on your sprint power or whatever. So actually, what you need to do are the kind of endurance rides and things. So again, you train specifically what you want to get better at, basically. Fueling and hydration, again, James has touched on this, but just as a general ballpark, it is important to get the most out of your training sessions to actually keep on top of the fueling and things. If you're doing an endurance ride and you run out of carbohydrate after 2 hours instead of 4 hours, either you're going to catch the train home and you haven't done your session properly, or it's going to be really uncomfortable. So as a general rule, like 1 water bottle per hour. Like, it's hard to do when it's cold, but you'll do more than that when it's hot. And then also like just a bit of food. It doesn't matter what it is, really, but just something. So an energy bar if you've got specific ones, or a cereal bar, or jelly babies or whatever. So that's pretty cool. Recovery, again, I don't want to go over too much, but I just want to emphasise that this is where the magic happens. Your training, essentially, you're making yourself worse. When you recover, your body's rebuilding, and that's when you get better. So it sounds pretty obvious, but I've certainly gone through phases where I've forgotten about that, and it's all about the training. It's all about the training, and you dig yourself a bit of a hole. So it's worth approaching the recovery as being as important. It doesn't need to be bed rest, but just thinking about like your what you're eating and when. Just again thinking about maybe the physiology behind it, what you need to put in your body for it to recover and rebuild, things like that. And this final one, it's taken me many years to get to this point, and now I actually do clean my bike. I'm getting quite fastidious about it, but I do find that if I've got a particularly hard training session, then actually having a clean bike is a big morale boost. So I mean, the harder the training session, I think the cleaner the bike maybe. And some days, obviously, you get back from a ride, you don't want to clean it, no problem with that. But some days, maybe just to have a clean bike, it will just give you that extra spring in your step to maybe get that extra bit out of your training session. Do you want to take over this bit?
We're not going to talk too much about zone training. We're going to go into more detail, and if anyone's got any questions on it, they can get to us directly. Essentially, the main sort of vibe behind it is to help you not to overtrain. When you actually use the zone trainings with the heart rate monitor, you'll actually realise that you're going much slower than you would normally, and it's quite sort of surprising the speed that you should go to train efficiently to the plans. So, you know, if you can get yourself a heart rate monitor, try it. You know, it's not for everybody, and some people love it, other people just can't be bothered, and it's absolutely not essential, but it's a resource, and we've got the expertise to help you through it. Essentially, on the document I sent to you, it gave you a bit of guidance on how to sort of get your heart rate, so I won't go into too much detail. What I thought was really good, which Simon actually sent through to us as part of his presentation, is the layman's explanation. So even if you don't have a heart rate monitor, essentially, zone 1, you can be chatting away quite intellectually. Zone 2, if you are starting to need to concentrate as you're talking. Zone 3, paragraphs. Zone 4, so it gets up. And essentially, if you can only grunt, you're in zone 6. So it's a very rough guide to sort of understanding. But like I say, when you start working with the heart rate monitor, it really, really sort of, you know, helps you to measure, and as I said, the crucial thing is not to overtrain. But zone training is not for everyone, so if you want more information on it, then do contact us afterwards and we can go into more detail. And I think, Simon, we put there, that was on your presentation, the crucial thing is to enjoy it. You're all doing this, it is a challenge, and you know, it is going to be tough, but ultimately remember it's supposed to be fun as well. One thing I'll just add before we hand over to Anna is with the mountain bike, for the people doing Mountain Mayhem, we're in the base conditioning stage at the minute, but when we get to the next phases, there's going to be a little bit more technical stuff involved with mountain biking, so to get you guys really into some of the skills you'll need to be riding for 24 hours on that circuit. So that's going to come up in the next phase, and I think it's going to touch on the lead ride program. There's going to be some specific mountain bike lead rides led by Robin and Paul Barrett. So Anna, if you're here, I'll hand over to you.
Hello everyone, hiya. I'm Anna, I'm the women's captain of Sky Velo, so I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about, I know you're itching to get started, so what we can maybe offer you in terms of group riding at the weekends and things like that. So we've got 3 locations for road biking. Our first one is southwest London, which we've got about 120 people that fall into this category at the moment. So I'm sure if all of you haven't signed up, there might be a fair few more of you in southwest London. The Saturday rides, they tend to be hilly rides at the moment, so they're split into steady groups and fast groups. Our fast groups, I would say that you probably need to get up a reasonable pace before you try and hang off the back of them, which I try and do sometimes. The steady groups are definitely, it's a little bit more about just a kind of a shift in attitude really. The steady groups, no one gets left behind, everyone has a chat. And it's once you're up to a good level, the steady groups are probably where you want to be. We normally do a ride out to Box Hill, and then once we're there, we have a little stop for coffee. Best flapjack in Surrey at the top of Box Hill. And then it's sort of a straight route back home. So they're quite good if you're looking for some hills in your legs, which is really quite important for you guys doing Pinarello. The Sunday rides are a little bit flatter. We go out to Windsor, say hello to the Queen. We've managed to negotiate ourselves a 20% off discount in one of the coffee shops. So we have a little bit of a longer stop there. We've always got our coffee card, loyalty cards in our back pocket as well. So that's a really good route. The roads are just the nice smooth surface, and it's just quite a good thing. If we get out at 8 o'clock, then we're back in Kingston by about 11, so you can enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and it's a really good option if you don't think you're quite up to doing any hills just yet. I'd definitely go for the Sunday rides. So that's the steady and fast options. Within those groups, there'll always be kind of ride leaders, so someone's always going to know where you're going, and they will be checking, although the fast rides are a little bit more nails, there will always be people checking that no one's got dropped off the back and was completely lost in the middle of the hills somewhere, so it's good. For the easy guys, every first and third Saturday of the month we meet at Roehampton Gate again, and we'll either go around the park a couple of times or maybe a Cobham loop and back. So that would just be a couple of hours. If you're thinking about whether you're ready or not to join one of the easy rides, I would suggest if you're a complete newbie, never been on a bike properly before, or you're just getting used to clipping in and out, I would definitely go on one of the Face Guys rides first. Get up a little bit of confidence really, and then come out and join us. But I wouldn't be too worried about waiting too long before you just get out there, because the ride leaders will look after you, and you'll find out soon enough whether or not you think you're at that level yet. So. And then for people in South East London, we've got about 20 people in this group at the moment. So we're meeting Crystal Palace, moderately hilly. In my experience, everywhere around Crystal Palace is a hill, but apparently there are some areas that aren't that hilly. So that's your option there really. About 3.5 hours, 90k, and we've only got steady rides going out there at the moment. So there's a big coffee stop at the end, so it's all very sociable. So if you're in that area. I know one of the girls, Abba Newbury, if any of you know her, she's sort of a good contact for that area. So certainly if you're in this area, then just get in touch with Velo and we'll let you know who's the best person to speak to is. And the last one is Guildford. So that's every Sunday, and again, hilly, steady ride. And the coffee stop at Box Hill, sometimes we end up crossing over with people coming from the South West London ride, meeting up with the Guildford ride, and it's a big Velo love-in at the top of Box Hill, which is quite nice. And then for the MTB lot, so we've got, I think, our first MTB ride happening on the 25th? The third one, oh sorry, I've missed him. Yeah, so there's going to be at least one of them a month, and they're catering for people who are hardcore, and also those that are just giving it a bit of a go as well. So if you're interested in those, I'd definitely speak to Robin or Paul, but otherwise just fire an email at Velo and we'll let you know how to get involved. And coming soon. So as the season goes on, we're going to try and sort of lengthen out the rides that we've got going on already. So once you're up to a good level, then and we feel the group's ready, then we'll move out to sort of slightly longer, hillier rides. There will always be the option of the shorter stuff, so it's not something to scare anyone off at all. And we're also going to start sessions before work on a Wednesday morning. So we go out, meet at Richmond Park when it's light. Go and chase some deers, and then come into work feeling really smug, sit at your desk and eat some chocolate. So I guess the thing is, why should you come on these rides? I think the ultimate thing is it's supposed to be fun. This year is about you enjoying your cycling, and this is a great way to do it. To be honest, you can get about an hour and a half into a ride and realise that you've been going for that long, and all you've done is had a chat about X Factor or something. And then you're at the coffee stop, and then all you've got to do is get yourself home. So it really is just a good way to get your training done. And the other thing I would say is all the stuff that's been said about riding in a group and learning all the hand signals and things like that. It's definitely good to be around other people so that you can see that happen and watch it unfold, and so you don't feel like a bit of a prat when you're doing all these hole, squirrel, cat. It's just about being part of the group really. And the other thing I would say is it's always good to push yourself, and I think you really should just have the confidence to just step out there, put yourself in the mix of it, and I think you'll probably surprise yourself that actually you're at a better level than you think you are, and that you can see your way forward. It's quite nice to see that there are people going faster and trying to hang off maybe at a slightly quicker pace than you would do normally, because you're tucking in, like James talked about before, and you're going along faster than you would on your own. And also, I think it's a little bit safer to ride in a group. drivers tend to take a little bit more care and attention if there's a sort of a sea of Sky vests in front of them than they would necessarily if you're on your own. So please do come out and join us. If you're not really sure which group you should be in or who you need to speak to, then just fire a message to the Velo page on their website, skyvelo.co.uk. Otherwise, talk to me. I think that's what I've got to say.
Thank you, Anna. Just like to, skyvelo.co.uk. It is free to join the Sky Velo Club, so if you register, you'll start receiving the information about the rides from them. We're going to start the program-led rides with the Pearson's rides, and then we will be hosting all our led rides will be easy, and we'll be sending out some dates on them coming up. So that's it for the first workshop. We're going to be hanging around for a little bit if you want to come and ask us questions directly, but I don't know if anyone has any questions they want to ask now. Yeah. Next Thursday at Pearson Cycles, they'll be available there at the discounted price. We'll also then, the distributor for Cask in the UK is a company called Velo Brands. We're just setting up a discount with them so that you can also buy them online. So either at Pearson's next week or by next week we'll have information of where you can buy online as well. Any other questions? Yeah. I think that Sky Velo are trying to organise some East London runs. I think we're just trying to sort of get some ride leaders to do that. But I think if you join Sky Velo and subscribe to the newsletter, you should get some more information on that, and you can drop them an email and ask what their plans are directly. Yeah. Guy.
So during the summer, you'll probably find that you want the short gloves. They're really not to keep your hands warm in summer, they're just to keep you protect your hand against the handlebars because you do get a bit of vibration. They tend to be padded across the middle of your palm. In the winter, it's absolutely essential to get proper warm gloves. The cycling-specific gloves are best. If you really are cold, then get some ski gloves, they're fine. They just tend to be a little bit bulky and it's a bit harder to change your gears. Most bike shops will have proper gloves. You want the ones with a reasonably padded palm, but lots of insulation. It's preferably ones that come right up to your wrist as well.
Yeah, and they start as cheap as £5–6. So yeah. Any more questions? Great. Well, thanks for coming along today. You're all now sort of getting the newsletters and all the weekly comms, so we'll be sending out more dates for the next workshops and other events.